All right, Shalom. First, I want to give all praises to Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to your elect. There's another article, all right, that I saw today. It says Trump's Iran gamble won't topple regime, but could start war with EU. Okay, so it says and from the title alone, man, you can already tell, all right, that this is all part of prophecy. Okay, it says Trump's plans are not about starting a war with Iran, but trying to bring about regime change by draining it financially. Its plan, which is doomed to fail, and could also create a costly trade war with the EU. You have to go back quite some time in contemporary history to find a policy decision taken by a superpower so spectacularly wrong that it compares to the decision by Donald Trump to pull out of the so-called Iran deal. One tends to think more recently of the decision by George Washington Bush to not only invade Iraq with no real plan, but to also cancel all pay to Iraqi army, a move which perhaps our grandchildren will still feel the impact of in decades to come. No, all right? None of that, all right? Another one, perhaps, could be the decision in 1956 for Britain to plow ahead with the military campaign in Suez, an all-time low in British history, which still produces red faces from bewildered politicals and historians today. Has Trump's buffoonery in the Middle East with the latest decision also set a new milestone in off-the-scale inanity? What exactly are we witnessing? Well, listen, man, you witnessing prophecy, okay? That's what you witnessing, man. Most High is putting the spirit on Trump to do what he's doing, okay? It's Most High set it all up, man, all right? He's controlling everybody, and he's moving the pieces perfectly right, okay? It says the decision appears to have come out of desperation after 18 months in office and still not being able to assert himself in the Middle East, in particular in Iran. But the statement made on Iran's deal is so deeply flawed with lies. Even James Mattis has stated that Iran robustly complied with the terms of the deal, including inspections. One has to wonder if his recourse is nothing more than an exercise in trivia. Is Trump fiddling with Rome burns? Have all plans failed, and so all he is left with is this juvenile ruse, which is really nothing more than a churlish statement? Nah, man, because you got to keep in mind the elites, all right, they're telling Trump to do what he's doing, all right. Trump, he's getting his orders from them, okay. So guess what? He's doing what they tell him to do, even if it doesn't make sense. He has to do it, but what? They're getting desperate. They have no other options. So they're making desperate moves. Okay, but this is all playing into the hands of what? Prophecy. Okay? They need a reason, a cause, all right? A spark for that ignition, all right, for that fire. It says Trump has manufactured a crisis in the last 2 days, which wasn't there before. In 48 hours, we now have a new heightened tension with Iran, a statement from Saudi Arabia that it will have to develop nuclear weapons, and an intensified military campaign between Iran and Israel and Syria. If Trump wanted to create a crisis which dominates the headlines and puts him in the media spotlight 24/7, then he certainly achieved that. But his methodology and understanding of the region is comically flawed. Some pundits believe he wants war with Iran. In my view, he doesn't, but is focusing on trying to topple its regime, a strategy no doubt supported by John Bolton, a man who dodged the Vietnam draft. Man, listen, all right, now they're just going on. I'm looking for the important stuff, okay? All right, it says here, absolutely critical to this massive plan is to shake Iran and bring about an economic crisis, which in turn he believes could facilitate regime change. Is hitting its economy hard. Certainly, Trump can bully countries around the world which have trade agreements with Iran, but giants like Russia, China, and the EU? Trump believes that with the vague threat of trade tariffs on steel and aluminum still hanging in the air, the EU is perhaps the weakest link and will comply with secondary sanctions against Iran. but this is already apparently impossible for EU countries like France and their economies. The Stoic resolve is pretty clear. According to statements, EU countries can't entertain this idea as it would push Iran down a slippery slope of developing a nuclear weapon, which in turn could easily create war in the Middle East. So now you got these countries between stuck in the middle, where either they go with the US, all right, or basically start a war because Iran's going to develop their nuclear weapons, all right, or they don't, and then the U is like, nah, we're against the US now. It says Europe simply cannot cope with new torrents of refugees and terrorist attacks. Even politically speaking, it would set a fetid precedent for Europe to allow the US to bully them into playing such a servile role to Trump's half-baked plans on the foreign policy circuit. Indeed, the EU's foreign policy chief, Federica Mogherini, will not allow the Iran deal to collapse, as it would make the EU look weak and ineffective. An iconic international treaty brokered by the EU and seen very much a milestone into its own forays of foreign policy making. And look at that, Trump all alone. It says, but with only U.S. sanctions against Iran, Trump's plan is about to blow up in his face. Not only will Tehran ensure that demonstrations against the government will no longer be allowed, but for months, Rouhani's government has been preparing itself for a new wave of U.S. sanctions, even going as far as trading in oil with euros. Trump badly needs the EU to join him in the sanctions gangbang, and he is banking on friends Emmanuel Macron to do his bidding for him. And guess what? If they don't, all right, if they don't join Trump, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to take even more drastic measures, and more likely against them also. Okay? Trump got that mentality of America first, and if you ain't with us, you against us. All right? It says, yet aside from this erroneous judgment, EU leaders and the Brussels executive itself have a choice to either serve their own interests or those of Trump as well. The EU will never support Trump with the sanctions, but they can keep the deal in check. This will prevent Iran from going ahead with nuclear weapons, open the country up to EU investment, embolden Iran around the world as a regional superpower, and send a very clear message to Washington. But Washington ain't going to take that message very kindly. It says, alternatively, EU leaders like Macron could try and convince Mogherini that she should consider a cash aid package for Iran for it to downsize its ballistic weapons program. Such a move could appease Trump, and the U.S. could at least drop their sanctions. Hey, well, listen, man, Trump ain't he's somebody who wants what he wants. If he doesn't get that, well, quote unquote, there's going to be consequences, apparently. All right. But hey, that's the kind of person he is. And that's the kind of person the Lord set up. All right. To get this thing going, man. All right. But this is all, once again, prophecy. So we got to keep watching. All right. See what happens. All right. You see what's going on with Syria and Iran and Israel. All right. With these strikes and launches and whatnot. All right. Like prophecies are happening, man. All right. Real soon, this economy is going to collapse. And hey, we're gonna be out of here, man. Lowell, and this is Edifying TV. Like, Shalom.